Better use the microphone, hadn't I? Kia ora koutou, welcome along. It's going to be a bit challenging today with Judine zooming and Jane, I think. Welcome, Judine.
Morena, Derek.
And Jane, welcome. So, I think not that we're recording, apologies, but Andrew White can't make the meeting today. And there's somebody else who was going to zoom in as well, wasn't it?
Richard Kirby was going to zoom in, I think.
Richard is, okay.
Sarah Holman will be zooming in.
It's Sarah, that's right, okay. Yeah. We could be outnumbered, couldn't we?
Sorry, can't really hear people. People aren't using microphones.
We can see you.
Well, yeah, I know, but it would be lovely to hear what's being said if it's relevant.
No, it's only banter, Judine, don't worry.
Thank you.
Everyone.
We got Tim zooming in as well. Okay, yes. Welcome, Tim.
Cheers.
Okay, we don't have any formal apologies, so we don't need to worry about that. Public forum, there was a possibility that Lynn Bagent and maybe the treasurer of the Nelson shooting, what do they call them? Sorry, target shooting Nelson. She was going to zoom in, but I assume that she hasn't been able to do that because she's got a grandchild she's looking after. But they have sent a letter, which I think Robin will outline, and they have a number of concerns, particularly the access road to their facility. And at night, sometimes they've regarded as a bit of a hazard walking along with the potholes and also the overhanging vegetation. So staff have been in touch with them, so hopefully some of those things can be addressed. And they also have a desire to have some wayfinding signage. So I noticed in the examples we were given today, there's several that cover the target shooting facility. So hopefully some of those issues can be addressed fairly soon. I'm not sure about the timeline for improving the road, though. But, perhaps somebody can speak to that during the activity report. Judine, sorry.
Probably just following up, because these issues had been raised not just by them before, but by members of the committee previously, probably since even before your time. So it would be good to know what the time frame is, because both the roadway, it's quite hazardous to walk on at any time of day actually, but in particularly at night, and the lighting as well. So an update in the activity report would be appreciated, because the committee members have raised it before themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, we'll get somebody to speak to that. Andrew was nodding his head slightly before, I think, so maybe it'll be him. Okay, confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting, 9th of February. Everybody happy with that? Tim's okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Good move.
Moved, Kit. Seconded, Trevor. Any discussion on that further? If not, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Okay, any declarations of interest that anyone needs to make on any matters today? Okay, not. Any late items anyone's got? No, it doesn't look like that. So let's go to no presentations. Let's go to the activity report. So Richard, you're going to lead on this. We'll take it as read, but if there's anything you want to highlight or update, please feel free to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps if I start, and then Jane will probably come in behind me and pick up on a few things as well. So I think the first thing that we did want to make you aware of was, and while it wasn't strictly in Saxton Field, that was the accident that occurred with the elderly woman where she struck a bollard in the Saxton Road, just leading into the Saxton Road underpass on the Bunnings side there, where the bollards were quite narrowly spaced. So the Nelson City roading team has been looking at that, and I'll let Jane update on that shortly. We've also, staff have also looked at the bollards within Saxton Field, because he was intimating in his complaint that some of those were too close together as well. But we have looked at those against the standard in terms of the space between the bollards and the height of them, and they all meet the standards. So there isn't any issue with those, whereas the other one in the underpass, with the spacing between the two bollards, was slightly narrower than normal and didn't meet the standard requirement. Jane, do you want to add to that?
Kia ora, everyone. Not too much further to add to that, just that our roading team will be, that particular bollard where there was the accident, our roading team have decided it will be removed, and they're putting some painted markings in that place instead. And there's Andrew White's doing a wee visit of the site with our health and safety people in a couple of weeks' time to just double check that there's nothing in Saxton Field that we need to change.
Thank you, Jane. Any questions from anybody? Kit, and then Trevor. Judy?
Well, I ride that through that underpass on a weekly basis, and all those bollards are slightly narrow, but you can get through them. Mine's an e-bike, so you can get through fine as long as you know what you're doing. Simple as that. So, but there's no vehicle access, so it would be very difficult for a vehicle to get there. So I don't have a problem with them being removed, but I didn't think they were bad at all.
Trevor?
Yeah, well, the only comment I would make is that a lot of these new cycles, particularly e-bikes, are getting particularly wide handlebars on them, and whether there is a need to really have a serious look and address this, and maybe it's got something to do with our age, but we don't possibly see it quite as well.
Or we're not quite as stable. Jane, do you want to comment or before I go to Judine?
I probably have nothing else to add really about that particular bollard section, no.
So there hasn't been any changes in the standards since, you know, mountain bikes have had kind of slightly wider handlebars, which seems to, some models seem to have.
In talking to our roading team, I think it's one of those things where standards do change over time, and we will need to just, you know, you don't not comply with, if you complied at the time that you put them in, then you comply, kind of thing. But they did suggest that we should go back through and just double check that there's, over time as standards have changed, if we've had bollards put in a long time ago and there have been changes, that we should just double check that they're okay still.
Thank you. Judine, do you still have a question?
Yeah. Just questioning, firstly, why a family member did a health and safety investigation, not us. I'm not quite sure. Why would a family member? It just doesn't feel like a good process, or is that just an ad hoc thing that they just did on their own volition?
Richard.
So the family member did this because they were a health and safety practitioner in Nelson, and so they carried out that of their own volition, and then sent us the letter with the accident investigation to both councils, and then it got passed to the roading section in Nelson City, and we just followed up on it from a reserves point of view, because I guess we all use bollards as a safety mechanism, and to avoid particularly in areas, for example, where the new gates are gone in by the velodrome there were cars driving up the shared path there because of the width of it, and to stop that sort of behaviour, because that becomes a hazard as well. We do need to use them on occasions. But it's certainly something that we have also been aware of with the Great Taste Trail as well, and we've had an instance with bollards there. And in fact, Steve Gurney, multi-sport athlete had an accident with hitting a bollard somewhere, and he's had a bit of a campaign around bollards, and so the engineers who look after the Great Taste Trail was certainly very aware of that as well.
Because I did want to add, we need to be just slightly careful not to victim blame too much, because, I know when my kids were younger and I had a bike with a tailgater out the back, there were a lot of areas that, especially when the Great Taste Trail was first being built, where actually they weren't designed to, have a tailgater, and people have tailgaters, panniers, all sorts of different things these days. If you've got kids or family with you cycling, we need to be cognizant not everyone is a single male on a bike. But I guess my key thing was just making sure that roading teams from both councils have this information, because as identified, they're the ones who have done this work and do 99% of the bollards around the region, is just making sure they're aware of making sure they're meeting the standards, because this one didn't. Thank you.
Well, I think it did meet the standards, Julian, from what we hear. So at the time, whether it's current, I don't know. Richard?
It didn't meet the standards on the width in between the two bollards. So, but that could be the change in the standards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yep. I always, personally, when I've used it, I've always felt a little bit nervous about that gap. Riding through on a tandem quite often. So yes, so I can understand you wouldn't need too much speed or too much wobble and you'd get into trouble potentially. Okay, can we continue with the report, Richard?
Okay, so the next part of the report looks at the capital projects update, and there wasn't anything that I particularly wanted to highlight in that. And the same with the operational activity, with the exception of fees. So there was some discussion at the last meeting around fees and alignment of fees. So we provided some information in relation to that for your information. But what we've suggested in the report is that that's something we look at further during the next LTP round, and the when we're doing the activity management plans, and take that into account through that process. And that would be probably the best time to look at that comprehensively and try and get them aligned, particularly for Saxton. Apart from that, there was nothing else I wanted to highlight, but Jane may have something to add as well.
Jane, anything you want to
Thank
highlight?
you. There was just one little item that I thought I should just make sure you were aware of, which is in the shared path development. And there's a photo in there of where we're proposing to put the path along in front of hockey. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that will result in a few trees having to come out. And that's the best location that we can put the path in. And we'll be putting trees in elsewhere to make up for the ones that we're taking out. But just because it's taking trees out, I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it.
No problem, it's fine.
Anybody? Okay. We'll accept that. Julian, sorry.
Sorry, do you not want me to use the hand up function? What would be easier for you? I don't know what you can see.
I can see your hand. Also, just use your voice as well, just to make sure, because I'm needing to constantly rove around the room and look up as well. So
okay. No, cool. Yeah, I just don't know how much you can see. So so I've got a few capital projects questions. The first one is just a clarification in 5.2. It says the budget to complete the project is 339 with a forecasted spend of 144. So does that mean there's $195,000 saving?
Thank you. Yes, that one was a saving that came up through the last committee meeting and was transferred to the Pathways project.
Okay, so it's a final saving of 195.
Yes.
Great, super, excellent, thank you. I'm not going to argue a saving. Just with the pathway, From the photo, and I know it's slightly concave, but is there, have you, I mean, you probably have, but I still need to ask, there looks to be like a pathway in between the trees, because there's 2 rows of trees. Have you looked, and I mean, paths don't have to be straight. Could it go around things? I'm just really concerned about the removal of mature trees with the planting of, little twigs, whatever you call a baby tree.
I'm not sure if Andrew would be able to give any further comment on that one.
Councillors, I've looked at the site, and there's I don't believe it'll cause an issue through there. There's a remaining row of trees behind, and I think actually by removing this row in the front against the roadway, it will actually help the growth of those behind. It's a swale through the middle, but there's enough room to put a pathway along the edge of the curb. I think it's a good solution.
Okay, and so are we going to look for mature trees, or what are we going to do? I mean, shade trees is something frequently asked for. And so, removing them and not having mature trees in replacement. So what are we looking for and where? And is it going to be roughly at the same time? We
continue our tree planting program throughout Saxton Field. We put in many in last season. On this site, there's a gap where we'll put one, but we'll put several elsewhere around Saxton Field. So we make sure that we keep up the tree planting program. And if you have a look out there now, the autumn foliage is stunning for works that we've done in the past, and we'll keep that up.
And so these, what maturity do we do?
Oh, sorry, the size of the tree probably about 2.5 metres.
Yeah. Okay. And in relation to 5.10, the accessibility improvements, just wondering where does the 20K, because I don't recall that we have a specific accessibility line, or do we now? And okay, we do now. Is 20,000 a year going to be sufficient? I don't know what was identified in 2014. We might need a refreshed audit, but just wondering if 20K a year, how many years before we sort of catch up and meet the requirements of that audit, for example. I mean, shared pathways is probably, one of the things, for example, so it's probably being met in other budgets as well. Yep.
Thank you. Yes, I think of the 2014 audit, it picked out just a range of items that it identified that needed action. And these last ones that we're going through now, which is that grate across the entrance to the stadium, was one of the last ones identified through that report. So you're probably right that we would need to do another refresh to just check whether there's anything else that needs doing. But you're also right in saying that there's other work that we do that also acknowledges or addresses accessibility issues that weren't even raised in these things, but just as we learn more, we get better at it.
Great, thanks, Joan.
So is that all your questions, Judine, at this point?
Yeah, that's all the ones on capital projects. We're going section by section, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll do section by section and give others an opportunity. So anybody else have a question on any of the capital projects?
I'd just like to say it's pleasing to see how the hockey people are certainly able to contribute their share quickly and on budget, which is great. But they certainly must have a very effective fundraising, because every 10 years, or in fact more often than that, they're into renewals. So it's good to see.
Thank you. Tim, did you have a question?
No questions on that. All very good. Thank you.
I just had one quick one, just relation. Was there any feedback from BMX about reporting back to them on our decisions?
Thank you. The BMX club were disappointed that we're not going ahead with a track at Saxton Field, I suppose, but we'd worked with them up to that point, so they knew that there were issues with the site and the cost was not something that they were able to fundraise that portion for either. And we're since talking to them about using Tahuna as the main BMX track. Just that's what, in the meantime, they're keen on having a track, and so we're working with them about what we can do at Tahuna.
And it'll be able to, with a few upgrades, maybe able to meet their demand or need for a while. I presume.
That's what the BMX have come to us and suggested some improvements to their track at Tahuna that would keep them happy and able to, you know, host events and run things at the Tahuna track.
Trevor, did you have any questions for that? No? Okay. Can we move to the...
Sorry, so just follow up on the BMX one. So are they still looking for something at Saxton, or do we need to revise it now either down to something smaller if Tahuna Nui is able to be adjusted to be their main one, or will that be part of the work you do next?
Councillors, staff are currently looking at upgrading the development plan, which we'll bring back to the committee hopefully at the next meeting, and we'll put something in that development plan. But at this stage, we're looking at downgrading the one, or just keeping it as a downgraded facility at Saxton.
Sweet, thank you.
Could I just ask about the signage and wayfinding? Not sure who's been leading on that, but there were some examples that we were given in the agenda, and I noticed there's a lot of different. There seems to be a bit of variety in terms for places. I'm not sure whether these are finalised yet, but the ovals, cricket and athletics have got various names, and as has the pavilion between them. So I just think there maybe needs to be a bit of rationale here. I accept these are probably still at a draft stage, but
yeah, they are still in draft. We do have an upcoming meeting with the Māori Partnerships team to still work on the translations. Yep. So we're still working on those. We're also finalising the icons as well. We're still missing a few, like the Outdoor Fitness Centre and some others, like Harakiki Green. So yeah, they are still a work in progress. We're hoping before the end of the financial year to have the designs completed, the translations done, and to have the ability for everybody to be able to see those drafts before they are approved. You will probably see them go up next financial year.
Thanks, Stu. That's good. I guess you're invited. Anybody can email you with any feedback they have at any point, I guess. Trevor?
Yeah, we talked in terms of the financial year. I'm not sure where that fits in with our triennium, the council year.
Yeah, that's within council's financial year.
Right, because I mean, it would be very nice to, in fact, have this all tidied up while we're in our current.
Yeah, we do have a couple of budgets. We have some budget allocation this financial year and then budget allocated next financial year. So this financial year, we've been working on the design of them and the other costs associated, which are getting the translations done and also the icon, the icon family. We will try and get as much done using the complete budget this financial year, but because of the massive costs and the amount of signage that we do need to update, we don't have full budget this financial year. We've got the budget next financial year, which we'll use as well. But we'll definitely try and get as much done using the allocated budget this financial year.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy.
Sorry, Derek, I did have another CapEx question. I thought this was in operational. You okay for me? Go for it. Yep.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Yeah, so it is about the signage. Yeah, so I've sent through a link about accessible design. I know these have been checked, it says, by blind citizens and blind low vision, but I'm not sure what scope they've been given. I don't know what the ultimate size will be, but even at this layout, it's phenomenally, there's like so much text. There's no gaps. There's a lot on the signs. I mean, I just struggle to take it all in, to be honest. It's not like it's a page of text you're trying to read. This will be a sign, and you're going to have to try and take it all in. There's no spacing between each one. There's a lot of te reo names that are exactly the same, which is confusing. So the cricket oval, the football fields and pavilion, the netball courts all have the same te reo name, for example. And then there's some that have like sort of no te reo, some that have lots of te reo. I'm just finding them really struggling with them in total. The whole formatting of them is very hard.
I'm not sure whether you heard Stu saying these are still being worked on, the te reo and the design, but I guess I said that staff would be inviting feedback, so you've given some, so thank you. I don't know from these sheets whether each page that we were given actually represents a particular sign or whether a lot of them were put together, because I imagine some are finger signs, but I wasn't sure about that. But I guess Stu might want to comment.
Thank you for your feedback. To answer your first point about the feedback from Low Vision, they did say that they were, happy with the designs as long as the contrast was bright enough. What we will do once we move through into the next draft, we will invite them on site, where we will put a sample on site and get some feedback that way. The translations we are still working through, and of course the information that's in the drafts is the same information that's currently on the signs, with the inclusion of the Te Reo Māori. What we will look at doing, and I've just had confirmation in the last couple of days, is that we can increase the size of the sign, because currently the sizes that you see are the exact sizes that are currently there at the moment. So we will look at increasing the size or removing some of the information that's on there to make it easier to read. So we're still moving through that process with Māori partnerships. We'll be working through it with council officers, and also with some of the Saxton field staff, and we'll provide the next draft at the next committee to take a look at, but it is still a working progress on the wayfinding signage.
And so there also seems to be a lack of consistency, and maybe it's because some things don't have te reo, but it's quite confusing that sometimes English is first, sometimes te reo is first, and so it's hard to know where to look. So is there going to be consistency? And I'm just,
So with the policy that we've been provided, it is recommended that te reo does go first. We will, try and make sure that happens. We've only been provided with some of the translations. We do have a site visit from our Māori partnerships team to actually go through, because even some of the translations might not work in their current form. So going through the process, when we do ask for a translation, the translations are sent off to the North Island, where sometimes they don't actually relate to the facility on site. So we'll be doing a site visit with our Māori partnerships team to ensure that those translations are correct, and then have a look in further detail to see if we can get further translations to make it consistent. So yeah, as I said, it is still in draft and a work in progress.
Okay, I've also, I sent through to Richard Hollier, because he was the report author, just some information on accessible design, because I know you've talked to Blind Low Vision, but there is a significant proportion of the community that doesn't fall under blind low vision but have astigmatisms, and having white on dark is actually quite hard. And if these are going to be outside, a lot of sun glare adds to poor ability to read things. So if you could have a look at that information as well, that will be helpful.
Thanks, Judy. Cool. Anybody else got any questions, comments on this, or any of the capital stuff before we move to the operational section? No, all good. Okay, the operational. I think, is there anything that Richard, you or your team want to highlight on that in section 6?
Sorry, Chair. I did talk about that at the beginning. So the only thing there was that I highlighted was that thing about the fees. But happy to take any further questions on the operational activity.
Anybody question? Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Interesting, the TDC, we've just been working through our walking, cycling, active transport, and under public submissions, there was a lot of comment about people having shade and little grassed areas for people to sit on. But the other thing that came through quite strongly, in fact, was the seating. And I mean, they've certainly talked in terms of the seating having backs, but they'd like to think in terms of just not straight seats, so you can have a little 2 or 3 seats together. The feeling being that as people really want to actually meet strangers and be able to have a conversation. So I think that's sort of following through what we've previously discussed around this recreational, for people just to sit down and have a chat and really just enjoy the place. Thank you.
Councillors, following the last meeting, Glenn managed to install a number of seats that he purchased through the men's shed, and they're installed and they're great. But we're looking at getting more, and we take on board what you say about not just a seat where 2 people can sit, but a place where you can have conversation, etc., with trees above. So we're looking at that as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. That's great. Anybody else? Judine, you got some of the section? Okay.
Yep. So what's not acknowledged in here is we had the street naming that the council's approved of Kerry Marshall Drive. And I'm just wondering if we're going to look at not naming streets after people, but if we're going to look at having street names. Because now that we've got one, probably need to actually consider having, Harakiki Drive, whatever, actual names, so we can, I mean, even Rabbit Island has street names in inverted commas.
Andrew, do you want to comment?
Rich and I just looked at each other and thought we don't want to go down that track. That's a political decision. But quite seriously,
I'm not asking to name streets after people. I said,
no, good.
I said just name them like Harakiki Drive.
I think that it would be advantageous to have names on the streets. That avoids confusion. And even if we named them after the sport that they were leading to, so we avoid people. But for example, the one that led to hockey could be Hockey Drive, the one that led to cricket, something like that. But it's something that we need to look at. I think you've raised a good point, and I think we need to do something.
Yeah. I mean, the sports might get problematic because, hockey and softball probably have the same street. And yes. I don't want to call it hockball or something to get compromise. I mean, to me, if there was a heritage, but no, I'm not advocating for people, just for names. So, yep, that would be good if staff looked at that. The other one was on the fees and charges. it's not specifically mentioned in here, but I'm just thinking we should actually have a resolution, because I think that there should be a review to look at having unified charges in time for the 2024-34 LTPs.
I'll take your guidance on that, whether it needs a resolution of the meeting or whether the
Yeah, I
staff
think
are
it
going
does
to do
need
that
a
anyway.
resolution. Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I've
Everybody
just
happy,
sent one through to,
happy to move?
I've sent one through to Alexis Roth on Messenger. Brow, sorry, apologies.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Just going to locate it. I can't read that, so can somebody read that out? Oh, there it is. Request a review of all fees and charges to develop a unified charging regime for Saxton Field to inform the 2024-20 to 34 long-term plan. So, all clear on that intent? Just to try and put the intent on. So it's on that side, sorry. Okay, cool. Thanks, Judine. Do you want to move it, Judine?
Yes. I mean, it's a review. It will come back to the committee numerous times.
Yep. Okay, do I have a seconder? Trevor?
Sorry, can you show me that amendment there? Sorry, it was up very quickly from here. You've got an amendment to something there, was it?
So can you see that screen there at all, Tim? You can't, probably.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, that's part of under the report there. My personal view, I'm happy for us to review all that, but I don't have a big issue if there's differences. It comes out there's some differences in the way we charge from TDC to NCC. We have our different inherent cost structure and how those are funded. And the other side of it is Australia's street names, etc. At this stage, I don't think we need to, don't want us to put upon our shoulders a lot of effort at this stage for the street names. If it's just A, B, C, D, or north, east, west, south, I'm pretty happy with that.
I didn't get the impression it was going to be a high priority subject of street naming. I think it was only a question to maybe try and avoid some other ones that wouldn't be quite so acceptable. But
yeah. So, I mean, I just like to avoid it altogether. Really, I've had no trouble finding my way around there. North, south, west, meet at the hockey, meet at the roundabout, and we're already going through the namings and the panels, etc. I think we're just going to end up too much all at once. And same with the naming on those signposts, etc. We've got. I mean, I know we're trying to be everything to everyone, but sometimes for clarity, we just keep what's there.
Okay, can we perhaps deal with this motion that we've got there? It's been moved and seconded. Do you want me to read it to you again, Tim?
You're on mute, Tim.
Cheers. Yes, I'm happy with that. I was just giving my input on those two topics at the right opportunity there. So I'm good, and that seems very clear what you've got in front of us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. All right, all those in favour of that motion, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. Thank you. Forgotten what I was going to say next. I was going to comment on something about the signs. Okay, we'll go with that. I was just going to make a comment. I hope that any street naming wasn't going to hold up the development plan. So I really would like to see the development plan at the next meeting, because I think that will be the last one the committee has. So, and some of us might be retiring. Trevor's definitely announced that. My term will be up, so I'd like to see that kind of personally, even if it is still provisional, as they always are a bit anyway. But so it'd be great if we could see that next in the August meeting. Okay, anything else on the operational activity section? Yep. I did attend the opening of the bike hub the other day, which was good. There's obviously a lot of keen people working on that little project to get bikes in shape for handing out to people in the community, either for a koha or for free, depending on their financial situations. But I think in 1 week just before the opening, they had actually provided 17 bikes to people who needed and wanted bikes. So that little project has really got it's taken quite a while to get through the planning and gestation phases, but there's now a lot of key people volunteering their time to get that project going. So I just wanted to also mention in the coming events is Nelson is hosting this year's New Zealand Secondary School Cross Country Championships, which are going to be here on the 18th and 19th of June. So if any of you want to have a look at it, we had a trial for the course at the weekend. A lot of it uses the fields, which I don't know quite what their name is, ones that were Harakiki perhaps, the ones opposite the Alliance Works, the big open space area. So quite what that name of the area is, I'm not sure. Uses that, and also around this for a 1K course and a 2K loop around part of the ground, the soccer fields to the football fields to the north. So there will be up to probably 800 competitors at those championships. So they are a major event. There's 2 days, and there'll be a lot of associated parents and coaches and supporters. So it will be quite a significant event this winter. Andrew, no, okay. And the trial run next Wednesday. If you're not got anything to do, the Tasman Secondary School Champs is happening then. So I guess Tony might be involved in that. Is that right? Or some of your staff. Some of the staff are, I think. So welcome along. Sorry, I forgot to extend a welcome to you earlier, Tony. Anything else in terms of the operational report? We've probably had a good go at all the three things that were attached in terms of entrance signs, and so yeah, provide your feedback to Stu if you have any more or think of anything after the meeting. Urge you to do that. So we're now going to move to, there's no more Saxton Field marketing strategy. So Stu's going to do a little bit of an introduction on this.
Thank you, Derek. Kia ora koutou. The Saxton Field marketing strategy has been 4 years in the making. It's included 6 workshops, multiple reports and updates to the committee, and provided opportunities for engagement with users and sports codes. I just want to acknowledge all the people that have been involved and had input into the strategy. Of course, the Saxton Field Committee for their guidance and direction, especially those in the working group, Councillor Judine Edgar and Chair Derek Shaw. Rob Greenaway for sharing workshop information during the RMP process and the engagement. Chris Butler from the marketing studio. Former Nelson City Council officer Lynette Hartgill for her work prior to my employment. Sarah Holman for creating the final document. Officers from Nelson City Council and Tasman District Council. Staff at Sport Tasman and all Saxton Field sporting codes and Saxton Field users for their feedback. We now have a Saxton Field brand and a style guide to use to promote the facility on all future marketing material, and we'll have a marketing strategy to increase awareness of Saxton Field and its range of facilities. The next steps are to create a detailed marketing plan which will describe how the joint councils are going to execute the strategy. I'll take the report as read. I can't see Sarah Holman there, but I invite any questions for Sarah Holman and myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Stu. Questions? Any of the committee members? Do you have a question, Tim? No? All right.
Sorry, I'm just fumbling with the mute button. No, all good. All good. Thank you.
Thank you. Judine, are you in on at the moment? No? God, yeah. Oh, here she is.
Yeah,
Any questions, Judine?
The whole time. I just turned my camera.
You're just having a break from us seeing you.
No, I've just got a migraine, so having the camera on is just hard work. So I just turned it off.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, thank you. Did you have any queries on this report?
No.
No? Okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of input to get it down to such a small document. So well done to everybody to get it slimmed down from the earlier drafts we were looking at. So I think that's great to do that. And I'm not quite sure what the role of the committee will be in the next phase of the marketing plan. I don't know whether that's something that will come to us for information or input or not. Would you like to comment on that, Stu?
Yeah, definitely as part of the marketing plan, we want to have a look at some targets and some performance measures as well, which will provide some recommendations to the committee and ask for feedback on those recommendations.
And rough timeline for that at this point is when you anticipate that's probably in the new council term, is it?
Yeah, we are hoping. We're hoping that we may be able to get the first draft through to the next committee meeting, but we'll be able to, have more information. After it's adopted, we can start working on that project, and then we'll find out what the timeline will be.
Yeah. Okay. In the meantime, some projects are clearly underway and will continue in any event. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, some really exciting projects on the way. We've got the Saxton Field website project, which is really exciting to actually have something physical to be able to use to promote the facility in all of its glory. So we're really excited about that. But that won't be complete until I'm hoping November to have that fully operational. So that's, a really exciting project. So a lot of those projects are happening, and we'll have some more plans as we move through the projects.
Thank you. Questions? I'll take Trevor first this time, and then Kit.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, hey, thank you for the work that's been done. I think this is great, and taking the point that I can see why we can't have it in this term. I mean, there's so much work, but as I say, I'd just like to congratulate the people that have been working on this, because I think this is just going to be something else as far as the development overall and the understanding that the community at large have of Saxton Field. No, well done.
Thanks, Trevor. Kit?
I'd like to echo Trevor's thoughts, and also just add that because I live so nearby now, the casual use that I see there on an everyday basis from walkers and cyclists is just increasing all the time. And I've got to commend Andrew and the team, particularly with some of the walkways that link it from Champion Road down through the creek. Those are outstanding footpaths that you put there, because they're so wide and well used by both dog walkers, cyclists and walkers. So that link has increased the use because it just links through from Champion Road all the way through to Saxton Road. And eventually when the rain development comes on, which is part of the FDS in the future, that'll just add to it, because we will be surrounded by houses and possibly a business park. We don't know, but it'll certainly add to it. And you're seeing increased casual use now all the time. So that just means that our community is getting real benefit. And I just see it mirroring what is done in Christchurch in terms of Hagley Park. And with the growth of the trees, that's been a significant improvement too, where you've got really good shading now from what we had 10 years ago. And you really see that.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. The trees are definitely maturing rapidly. Definitely providing a lot more shade than they did earlier on when they resembled sticks, as Judine commented. Judine or Tim, do you have any comments or queries you want to make? Tim?
Yeah, thank you. Just echo the previous speakers. Yeah, thank you for the team, because I know it's a very broad assets and facilities we provide, and trying to get that down to some icons and some mission statements, etc., and articulate that. I've been appreciated, because it's something which takes a lot more work than people realise, and I guess we're blessed. We've got a good team around the table who are a small team which can keep well focused. So no, thank you to. This hasn't been taken for granted, because I know a lot must go on in the background that we as the councillors don't see. So I'm glad much of the heavy lifting's done behind the scenes before it comes to the table, before we start to try and unpick it completely. But no, I appreciate it. I thought we've made some incredibly good gains, and been a learning curve, and very impressed in the way we've captured the past, present and the future. in both the direction and the branding of this place. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Judy, do you have any comments you want to make?
No, I'm all good, thanks.
I just want to acknowledge your input, though, as along with myself, we were kind of delegated some tasks to do. So thank you for your assistance on that over several
Well done.
meetings. So, all right. If there's no final queries or comments, I think we do need to pass a resolution, I guess, in terms of a marketing strategy that's on your agenda. Under on page 8.2. So
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
you're happy to move that, Trevor? Seconder? Tim's happy to do that. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So that's the end of that item. We don't have any confidential businesses, I'm aware. So I think all it is just time to declare the meeting closed. And thank you very much for your inputs at the meeting and during the period leading up to it. And thank you for being here today. So hope it wasn't too onerous to get here. That must be the shortest meeting we've had so far, I think. So thank you very much. I'm not sure whether there's a cup of tea is an option in these COVID times.